أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين مؤمنين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Firstly, I would like to apologize for some technical issues. I cannot show the slides on the PowerPoint, but inshallah next week hopefully that will be fixed, and inshallah that will help make this discussion a bit better. So as you're all aware, inshallah the idea is to have 5 sessions minimum regarding the ahkam of khums that is the most relevant for people today. Before I get into the discussions and the details of the ahkam, I would like to make a brief introduction regarding the basis of khums or the foundations of khums. Khums, as we know, is one of the furu'ud-din, and it's not only something that is unique to the Shias. In fact, all Muslims believe in the wujub and the obligatory nature of paying khums. What makes the Shia unique is when it comes to the items that are liable to pay khums upon. So if you look at the Ahl Sunnah, for example, they say treasure troves are khums is wajib upon it, mined products khums is wajib, gems acquired by underwater diving is also liable for khums. So these 3 is like muttafaqun alay, and all the Ahl Sunnah tend to accept that, okay, these items khums is wajib upon it. And historically they say even during the time of the Prophet also charged khums on these kind of items, gems and treasures and these kind of things. The Shia say that actually khums is wajib on 7 items apart from these 3. What makes us unique though is that we believe that khums is also wajib on what is known as al-arbah al-makasib, meaning the profits of trade. A person has a business, he is employed by someone, for example, he is trading, he is engaging in business activities. The profits that he gets and the money that he gets from these activities, the Shia are unique in saying that actually khums is also wajib on this profits of trade or these business activities, the output that comes out of it. And this is known as al-khums fi arbah al-makasib. Arbah is the plural of ribh, meaning profit. Makasib means trade, commerce. So what makes the Shia unique is they say that actually even on a day-to-day basis, when you have a job, you have business, you're earning profit, even that is liable for khums. And so since the times of the Imams, this debate has always existed with the Ahl Sunnah. That okay, the Shia are saying that khums is so wide that every day you're earning these items, khums is liable on this as well. And the Sunnah are saying that no, for example, things like war booty, mined products, underwater diving, that when the person gets some gems, this limited to this kind of things only. So the question comes that okay, why do the Shia believe in this? What is the basis of this? In fact, many people, if you ask them today, they would say, oh, even the Quran, for example, it's not clear that it's talking about khums the way we pay khums today. They say, for example, the Quran talks about khums on war booty. So before I begin the details of the ahkam, I just want to take a brief look at the main ayah of khums. And that is in Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 41. So Surah number 8, verse number 41 is considered the main verse that discusses khums in detail. There is another verse in Surah Al-Anfal, although there is some discussions and debates about whether that verse is also talking about khums. But this verse, all the fuqaha and all the scholars, both Sunni and Shia, they say, okay, this is the main verse for khums, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى. Says, know, O believers, know for sure that whatever you gain, min shay'in, be it from whatever thing, فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ, then for Allah there is a khumus. So the word we use khums literally in Arabic means 1/5. When you say khums, you pay 2%. The word khums actually just means 1/5. That's why, for example, if you want to say 1/4, you say ruba, or 1/3, you say thuluth. So 1/5, 20% is khumus. So the ayah says anything that you gain, Allah has a portion in it, khums of it belongs to Allah. And now 6 groups of individuals or people are mentioned in the verse, they say that, okay, this khums or 1/5 of what you gain belongs to these 6 people. فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. Firstly, a part of this khums of yours belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So over here, the Ahlul Sunnah, most of them, they say that it's not really the case that, for example, Allah has a specific portion of khums. They say, no, actually, although there are 6 groups mentioned in this verse, but this first one of Allah having a portion of khums, they say this is just tashrif and tabarruk. It's just a way of respect of the verse. It's not really that Allah has a portion of khums. So they say, out of these 6, okay, Allah is not really a recipient of khums, there are just 5 groups. But the Shia say, no, there are 6 groups mentioned in this verse, and all 6 have a share. So first, the verse says, أَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. Okay, out of this khums, Allah has a portion. وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى. The Prophet has a portion on this khums. The dhil qurba, the relatives of the Prophet, have a portion from this khums. وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. The orphans, the needy, and the traveler. So these are 6 groups. Allah says, whatever you gain, khums belongs to these 6 people. It has to be divided between these 6 groups. إِن كُنْتُمْ آمَنْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى عَبْدِنَا يَوْمَ الْفُرْقَانِ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجُمْعَانِ. Khums belongs to these people, and you have to pay the khums if you have faith in Allah and what we sent down to our servant on the day of separation. So when the fuqaha, they come, they look at this verse, the Shia fuqaha, they say, you know what, this verse is general. It is not specific to war booty or any of the 3 items. It is general, and it says that anything that you gain, khums exists upon it. So now we say, okay, the Sunnah are saying that, for example, okay, khums is only on war booty or only on, for example, mined products. How do we come and prove and say, no, actually, the verse is more general? So we say, if you look at the verse, there are several indicators in the verse that tells you that this verse is very general and saying khums is applicable on any profit that you make. So first of all, the ayah says, وَأَلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُمْ. Know that whatever you gain. Ghanimtum, the verse ghanimtum comes from the root word ghanama. Now, when you come to doing tafsir of the Quran, the first rule of tafsir is that the Quran was revealed in Arabic. So any word that's in the verse, you have to look at, okay, what is the actual Arabic meaning of that word? You cannot say, okay, because today, for example, we understand this word this way, that's why we'll interpret this verse in this way. No, we'll say, okay, during the time of the prophets and the imams, what did these words mean when the Quran was being revealed? So the verse uses ghanimtum, whatever you do, ghanimtum, whatever you gain. So some people say, you see, ghanimtum means, when you say, in Urdu we say, male ghanimat, war booty. Say, ghanimtum, male ghanimat, the same root, saying whatever you gain as war booty. But our argument is that firstly, if you look at what the Arabic dictionaries say, the earliest Arabic dictionaries, they all say actually ghanama, the root letters ghanama, is very general. It means anything that you gain, you can use the word ghanama for it. None of the Arabic dictionaries say ghanimtum is specific to war booty or what you gain in a war. So our first point is that, look, in terms of language, ghanimtum means whatever you gain. There is no restriction to say only this type of gain, anything you gain. The second one is that if you look at the word ghanimtum or this ghanima, the root, and how it is used throughout the Quran and through ahadith, you see even in the Quran and in ahadith, it's always used in a general sense. It's not used to say specifically war booty. So for example, in Surah An-Nisa verse 94, Allah again uses the same root word. He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا ضَرَبْتُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. So, O believers, when you are traveling and you're going for, you have your war equipment with you and you're going out on the land and you're traveling, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, then inquire. In the sense that you come across someone and you're thinking, oh, this person, he must be a kafir who I have to fight with and I have to kill him. And if I kill him, I can take his things from him. I can take his booty. Allah is saying, hang on, don't just kill anyone you see. فَتَبَيَّنُوا, first of all, do some identification, do some examination. Is this person really somebody who you're at war with, or is he a Muslim? وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ أَلْقَى إِلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامَ لَسْتَ مُؤْمِنًا تَبْتَغُونَ عَرَضَ حَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. And don't say that when you meet someone in the desert, for example, and this person, for example, tells you, Salam, I'm at peace with you, or I'm a Muslim. When this person tells, I'm a Muslim, don't say, Lasta mu'minan. No, you're not a believer. I can fight you. Allah is saying, no. You only do this تَبْتَغُونَ عَرَضَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. You only want to gain the war booty. So therefore, anyone who comes and says, I'm a Muslim, you say, no, you're not a Muslim. You're a kafir, I can kill you, I can take your wealth. Allah is saying, hang on, no. Don't just kill anyone who comes across your way. If somebody claims to be a Muslim, don't, for the sake of money, refuse to what he's saying. Then the point over here is, فَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَغَانِمَ كَثِيرًا. Why don't you do this? Why should you investigate? Because Allah has all this ghanimah that you are after. He says Allah has all this ghanimah. It's not saying that, okay, Allah has the war booty. No, it's saying all this money and the wealth that you want, Allah has all of it. So don't say, oh, because of greed for money, I'm going to kill this person straight away and take his wealth. And there are many uses of ghanimtum in narrations as well, but I don't want to make this more technical. So the second point is that, okay, you look at the Quran and Hadith as well, ghanimtum, ghanima is used to mean anything that you gain. The third point is, in terms of Arabic grammar, if you look at the verse, it says, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ مَا غَنِمْتُمْ. Ma ghanimtum. Ma means whatever. It's a particle of generality. Whatever you gain. On top of that, the verse adds, min shay'in. If the verse would have said, وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ مَا غَنِمْتُمْ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسُ. Know that whatever you gain, there is a khums for Allah on it. The verse didn't say that. Min shay'in. The most general word that you can find in the Arabic dictionary. Min shay'in. From anything. It doesn't say from war booty, from minerals, from precious gems. Min shay'in, anything that you get, ghanimtum, if as soon as you gain it, there is khums upon it. And lastly is that we cannot really understand the depth of these verses without referring to the true mufassirin of the Quran. And when we come to the Ahlul Bayt, they have done tafsir of this verse in numerous instances, and they have made it explicitly clear that, look, this verse has not limited to war booty. This verse is more general and applies to everything that you gain on a day-to-day basis. So for example, Ali bin Mazahir is one of the companions of Imam al-Jawad, and he says that I read this letter of Imam al-Jawad on my way to Mecca, and Imam al-Jawad says, فَأَمَّا الْغَنَائِمُ وَالْفَوَائِدُ فَهِيَ وَاجِبَةٌ عَلَيْهِمْ فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ. And then the Imam recited the verse. So the Imam is telling Ali ibn Mazahir that every year, whatever gains that you get, whatever profits that you get, khums is wajib upon it, فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ, every year. And then the Imam recited the verse. Meaning what? The Imam is saying that what I'm saying is from the verse. By saying that every year, whatever you gain, khums is wajib upon it, and then the Imam recited the verse, the Imam is doing tafsir of the verse. A more clearer narration is narrated from Imam as-Sadiq, where he says, one of the narrators came to him and says, I came to Imam and I recited this verse for him, saying, what is the tafsir? Because the Sunnis are saying one thing, I'm hearing different things. So I recited the verse for him. The Imam says, قال هي والله الإفادة يوما بيوم. The Imam says, I swear by Allah, this verse is saying, day-to-day activities in which you gain things through your business and your profits, daily what you get, khums is wajib upon it. Not that, okay, once in a while when you have a war, you get war booty. Second narration. Third narration, from Basair al-Darajat, again, this one is also from the seventh Imam, where somebody came, again, recited the verse for Ayatul Khums for the Imam, and then the Imam says, so the Imam explained the verse, and it says, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ فَهُوَ لِرَسُولِهِ. Imam says, the start where it says khums, a part of it belongs to Allah. The Imam says, that portion that belongs to Allah, فَهُوَ لِرَسُولِهِ. That portion belongs to the Prophet. وَمَا كَانَ لِرَسُولِهِ فَهُوَ لَنَا. And whatever belongs to the Prophet belongs to us. Because at the time of the Imam, the Prophet is not alive, so the Sunnah are confused that, okay, there's a portion for the Prophet. The Imam is saying, look, that portion for Allah belongs to the Prophet. So the Prophet now has two portions. His own portion that the verse says, and the portion of Allah. Then the Imam says, whatever belongs to the Prophet belongs to us. ثم قال والله لقد يسر الله على المؤمنين أرزاقهم بخمسة دراهم جعلوا لربهم واحدا وأكلوا أربعة أحلا. Imam says, I swear by Allah, Allah has made it so easy for the believers that through the risk that they get, the money, the wealth, and the provisions that they get, Allah has made it so easy for them that if they get 5 dirhams, Allah has made it easy and said, you know what, only give 1 dirham. 4 is halal for you. وَأَكَلُوا أَرْبَعَةً أَحِلَّا. He's made it so easy for you that out of 5 dirhams that you get, 1 you give in khums, 4 is halal for you and you use the way you want. ثم قال, then this is the important point over here. The Imam says after this, هذا من حديثنا صعب مستصعب لا يعمل به ولا يصبر عليه إلا ممتحن قلبه للإيمان. Imam says, this hadith that I have just told you is from those ahadith of ours that are the most difficult and the most complex to understand and to have patience and act upon it. And nobody can have patience to act upon such narrations except for those believers who Allah has tested their faith for iman. The Imam is saying, look, I'm telling you, out of 5 dirhams, 1 is khums. But this, not everyone is going to act upon it. Not everyone is going to accept upon it. Only those believers whose hearts have been tested for iman, they will be able to bear with this. So the verse is very clear. Based on the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt, the Imams have said clearly, the verse is general, and whatever we gain, khums exists upon it. Before I move on to the ahkam, I was looking at Ayatollah Sistani's Risala today. So in terms of the sources that we will be using, the problem with the sources available in English is that the Islamic laws that is available in English is very brief when it comes to khums. And so many people, when they read it, they have many questions because it seems like many of the questions are not answered. So there are 2 sources that I would refer to. And so if you hear anything new, know that it's coming from these 2 sources. And if you want to read more as well, you can refer to these 2 sources. The first one is, Ayatollah Sistani has a 4-volume risala in Farsi called Tawdihul Masail Jami'. It's the most detailed risala, and the chapter on khums is extensive and has a lot of worked examples as well. Now, I'm sure most people cannot understand Farsi, but the specific chapter of khums has been translated into Urdu. So if you can read Urdu, that specific chapter of khums is available in Urdu. So that's the first source that we'll be using. And the second source is a book by the name of Kitab Ar-Rafid, which is also one of the most extensive works in Arabic, comparing the views of Ayatollah Khouyi and Ayatollah Sistani on some of these, most of these ahkam of khums. So in his Tawdih al-Masail Jami', Ayatollah Sistani, before he begins the ahkam of khums, he brings several narrations to show the importance of khums. And so I want to just share those narrations with you. The first narration that he brings is a authentic narration. I was speaking to someone yesterday and they said, like in a few years it seems like the youths, they're not going to believe all these narrations that you bring unless you prove that they are authentic. So aside from the fact that Ayatollah Sistani has brought this in his Tawdih al-Masail, this narration has been mentioned by Sheikh al-Kulaini in his Al-Kafi, and the chain of narrators is Muhammad ibn Yaqub and Ali ibn Ibrahim and Abihi and Ibn Abi Umair and Al-Husayn bin Uthman and Samma'a. The chain of narrators is without a doubt authentic and reliable. There's only a difference of opinion about Samma'a bin Mihran, whether he was a Waqifi or not. Regardless, the narration still stands as authentic. So Samma'a bin Mihran says, قال سألت أبا الحسن عليه السلام, I asked the 7th Imam عن الخمس. I asked the Imam a question about khums. The Imam says, قال في كل ما أفاد الناس من قليل أو كثير. Khums exists in everything that people gain, قليلا أو كثير, whether it be little or it be a lot. Doesn't matter the amount that they are getting in their business. Small, big, doesn't matter. In everything that they earn, khums is there. In another narration, where somebody writes to Imam al-Rida, where he says that a businessman from Faris, from Iran, he writes a letter to Imam al-Rida, يَسْأَلُهُ الْإِذْنَ فِي الْخُمْسِ. He asks the Imam, please forgive me from giving khums. Now this is a whole separate discussion. There are about 20 narrations that discuss this idea of the Imams forgiving khums for the Shias, to the extent that some people now have used these narrations to say that actually, in the ghaiba, aslan khums is not wajib. It was there during the time of the Imams. For the ghaiba, the Imams forgave it, and you don't have to give khums nowadays. When we reach the discussion about how to interact with the people who don't pay khums, I will bring some of these other narrations over there. For now, this is one of the narrations where the Imam is responding to someone who's saying, Ya Imam, forgive me from paying khums. It's difficult, I don't want to pay. فَكَتَبَ إِلَيْهِ. This is the response of Imam al-Rida to this person who's saying, forgive me from paying khums. Imam says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَاسِعٌ كَرِيمٌ ذَمِنَ عَلَى الْعَمَلِ الثَّوَابِ وَعَلَى الْخِلَافِ الْإِقَابِ. Imam says, Allah is expansive in His mercy, He is very gracious, and He has guaranteed that whoever does a good deed, they will get the thawab that He has promised. And if you go against His commands, He has set a punishment. لا يحل مال إلا من وجه أحله الله. Imam says, there is no wealth that you can touch or put your hands on and take it for it to become halal, except through the means that Allah has dictated and said, through this means, this wealth becomes halal for you. So there means, for example, Allah said, if you gain wealth through this, it's haram for you. For example, you sell alcohol, for example. Allah says, no. If your business is selling alcohol, that wealth is haram for you. But there are other ways, Allah said, if you go through these means, that wealth is halal for you. So Imam says, there are means by which Allah has made gaining wealth halal for you. Innal khumusa aununa ala dinina. So this person was saying, forgive me for my khums. And the Imam says, indeed, khums is a support for our religion. You want to forgive khums. Khums is the basis for our religion. If we want to support our religious activities, we need the support of the khums. وَعَلَىٰ عِيَالِنَا وَعَلَىٰ مَوَالِينَا. And not only is it for our religious activities, but for our families as well. The whole discussion about why does khums go to Sahmus Sadat. The Imam says, for our families as well, khums is a means of supporting them. And for our lovers as well. Meaning when they are in need, the khums is used for them. وَمَا نَبْذُلُ وَنَشْتَرِ مِنْ أَعْرَاضِنَا مِمَّنْ تُخَافُ سَطْوَتُهُ فَلَا تَزُورُهُ عَنَّا وَلَا تَحْرَمُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ دُعَاءَنَا. Imam said these are the benefits of khums, why we use the khums. And then he says, don't make yourself distance or make yourself haram our du'as for you. Don't make our du'as haram upon you by not giving the khums. Meaning if you want our du'as to reach you, pay the khums. The benefit is going to go to you. وَمَا قَدَرْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ فَإِنَّ إِخْرَاجَهُ مِفْتَاحُ رِزْقِكُمْ. Because your giving the khums is the key to your rizq. You think, yeah, okay, I'm going to invest over here and there. Imam says, no, actually the key to your sustenance and to your rizq is the khums. وَتَمْحِيسُ ذُنُوبِكُمْ. And it is a means of purifying your sins. وَمَا تَمْحَدُونَ لِأَنفُسِكُمْ لِيَوْمِ فَاقَتِكُمْ. And it is what you have prepared for yourself the day that you'll be in utter poverty, on the day of judgment. وَالْمُسْلِمُ مَنْ يَفِي لِلَّهِ بِمَا أَحَدَ عَلَيْهِ. And a real Muslim is one who maintains his promise or his covenant that he has made with Allah. وَلَيْسَ الْمُسْلِمُ مَنْ أَجَابَ بِاللِّسَانِ وَخَالَفَ بِالْقَلْبِ وَالسَّلَامِ. And then Imam says, a Muslim is not one who says by his tongue that I am a Muslim, but his actions do not show it. So the Imam is telling him that, okay, you claim to be a Shia, you claim to be a Muslim, these are the benefits of khums. Islam is not simply just saying on the tongue, you have to show it through your actions. So I hope that clarifies the importance of this discussion. And the way that inshallah these sessions will work is that I will try my utmost best to limit myself to those rulings or those discussions that are most pertinent to us and are most relevant to us in today's day and age. And the way the structure of these sessions will work is that overall, khums works in the following way. That as soon as I gain something, I am allowed to use this wealth for my personal expenses until my khums date comes. When my khums date comes, whatever I have used for my expenses, okay, it's gone, nothing's there. Whatever is left from my savings, I have to pay khums on it. So overall, our discussion will look at starting with what is my khums date? How do I identify my khums date? What are those incomes that are liable for khums? And what are those incomes that are exempt from khums? What are those expenses that I'm allowed to use my money in, such that if I use my money in that, then okay, that money is gone, I don't have to pay khums. And what are those expenses that if I use my money in those areas, then no, khums is still wajib, even though I've spent my money in those areas. And then, how do we calculate things like debt and loans? How do we factor that in? And then, after we have come to our final conclusion about how to calculate your khums, how do we distribute it? Can we distribute it ourselves? How do we distribute it? And how do we deal with people who don't pay khums? If I know somebody who doesn't pay khums, I go to his house, okay, is his wealth all haram for me? I cannot eat his lunch, I cannot eat the food he's giving me. How do I interact with such people? And at the end, if there will be time, then inshallah we will discuss the issues relating to shakiyatul khums. You know, in madrasa we used to learn shakiyatu namaz, the doubts in namaz. You have doubts in khums as well. Okay, I'm confused about my calculations, or I don't remember, did I pay khums on this money or not? Should I have to pay again or no? I don't know if I use this money, is it a new money? All those cases of doubts will come at the end. So today what I want to start with is one of the unique things regarding khums when it comes to looking at fiqh in general is if you look at other ibadat like salah, like saum, like hajj, these ibadat are only wajib on people who are mukallaf, meaning they have taklif, meaning this person is sane, he's an aqil, he is baligh. So for example, children, they don't have to pray, they don't have to go for hajj, they don't have to fast. A person who is insane doesn't have to pray, doesn't have to fast, doesn't have to go for hajj. But khums is unique in that khums is not limited to people who are baligh and aqil. So how can this be? How can you say khums is wajib upon children? When we say that children, for example, don't have taklif, or there's nothing haram upon them, or they don't have wajibat, we mean that yes, there is nothing physically, they don't have to do any wajibat, there's nothing haram upon them. But when it comes to their possessions and the things that they own, things like khums automatically applies to their possessions. So first we have to consider, okay, what do you mean by a child owning something? So the clearest example is gifts. A non-baligh child receives gifts from the time he is born till he becomes baligh. Usually there's no working involved. So the main source of income for the child is gifts. Birthday gifts, the family gives, the parents give. Eid comes, they give him gifts. So now this child has property through these gifts that he is getting, whether it's be money, whether it be clothes, electronics, games, whatnot. Clearly he's got some possessions. Khums is applicable on all these items if they have not been used by the child 1 year until from the acquisition of that item. So say for example, he receives a gift on his birthday, say 1st January. So for the child, what will happen is that, okay, the parent has given him, for example, 1,000 shillings on his birthday. Until next year, 1st January, the parents can use this money on the child, buy him whatever he wants. If that money remains for 1 year until the next 1st of January, then khums will be wajib upon that money. But okay, we just said that nothing is wajib upon the child. He doesn't have to do anything. Yes, true. He doesn't have to do anything. But in the case of a non-baligh child, it is wajib for his guardian, his wali, to remove his khums that has become wajib upon his wealth. Who is the guardian of the child? The father or the grandfather. It's not the mother, so this is not the mother's duty, this is the father's duty. The father or the grandfather, they are considered the legal Shari guardian of the child. And it is their duty that if the child receives anything and it lasts for more than a year and it's not been used, then it is the guardian's duty to remove khums from that wealth or from that item. So say for example, the father is there, he's saying, okay, the child is getting this money. What the father can do is that he can use this money on the child. He doesn't have to pay khums on it wait for 1 year. Any wealth that the child receives, the guardian being the father, it is his responsibility. He can say that the child has money, I am allowed to use his money for his expenses. The child needs, for example, school fees, he needs the average number of toys, he needs his clothes, the food, drink. The father can say, you know what, okay, he has his money, I'm allowed to use his money for his benefit. It's not wajib upon me to remove my own money for the child if the child has wealth on his own. So the father can say, okay, I'm going to use this money for the child, for his fees, for all his expenses. So if he uses it, okay, that money is gone. The point was that if this money remains until 1 year from when the child received it, then khums would be wajib upon it. But if instead the father says, no, you know what, I'll pay from my own self, I'll support the child, this money, I want to keep it as an investment. Let it save in a bank, for example. When the child grows big, he'll take it to university or something like that. So I'll save it for the child. So here, as soon as 1 year happens from the acquisition, when the child receives that gift, khums becomes wajib upon it to remove from that wealth, and it is the duty of the father or the grandfather to remove the khums of that money. Now, what if somebody says, okay, I was a non-baligh child, my father didn't remove my khums. So here, the ruling is that, okay, as long as you're non-baligh, nothing is upon you. There is no duty upon you. The day this child becomes baligh, if any of that wealth is still with him, It's not been used. For example, it's there in a bank account, or it's there in that piggy bank that they have, and the child knows that, okay, 1 year has passed since I got this money, so khums is wajib upon it. Now that he is baligh, because the father didn't remove it, now he will remove it himself. The father did a mistake, he did a guna, he didn't do his duty and pay the khums, but now because the child has become baligh, so the child himself will pay khums on that money that has been there for more than a year. If he just recently got it, so say for example he got it 1 month ago, then khums is not yet wajib upon this. We said khums becomes wajib 1 year after he received that gift, whether it's be money, clothes, anything that has not been used. 1 year, if it's lasted for 1 year and the father has not paid the khums, it is the duty of the child to pay the khums. Okay, what if the child says, my father never removed khums, but the money lasted for more than a year, and then my father used it for whatever purpose, either on me or himself or whatever. So now what do I do? So we say the child, okay, this money, you don't have it anymore, there is no duty upon you. But the father, remember, it was his duty to remove the khums. If he didn't remove and the money remained, the child will remove it when he becomes baligh. But now, because the father used that money, which khums was wajib upon, it had lasted for a year, he was supposed to pay khums, he didn't pay khums, he went and used that money, on whatever case, for the child, for himself, whatever. Now that the father has paid that, it is the father's duty to pay the khums. So even though the money is not there, he has to calculate that, for example, okay, those years that, okay, I used my child's money, khums was wajib, I didn't pay that khums, I am liable now, because I am the one who made that money go away. If the money would have remained when the child was baligh, the child would have removed it. But I used that money, I didn't pay the khums, so in this case, it is the father who would be liable to pay that khums, even though it's gone. Now he'll remove from his own pocket, and he will have to pay that khums that he spent that money. There is only one exception where somebody says that because I saw the list of one of the questions on the registration form was, who do you do taqleed of? So nowadays majority of maraji, they agree and they say yes, khums on children's wealth exists, and like I said, like I explained, nowadays contemporary maraji, they all accept this. But Ayatollah Khouy was unique, and he said that no, khums does not apply to the wealth of a child. So in the case where if the father is a muqallid of Ayatollah Khouy, and the son, for example, is now following Ayatollah Sistani, so in this case, because the father was following Ayatollah Khouy, and Ayatollah Khouy says that no, khums is not wajib on the wealth of children, so in that case, the father is safe, he doesn't have to pay the khums on that wealth. The son, when he becomes baligh, if that money is there, he will pay khums on it. So that's the only situation where, okay, he's used the money, okay, khums is not wajib because he was the father was doing taqleed of Ayatollah Khouy, and Ayatollah Khouy said khums is not wajib on the wealth of children. So in that case, that father then, okay, he doesn't have a duty. Now, I said that the same ruling applies to an insane person. Now, usually when we were in madrasa and these things of insane people would come, we'd say, yeah, this doesn't apply to us. Like, how often do you see an insane person? So one instance that's slightly more prevalent is that if a person is afflicted with Alzheimer's disease, and their disease reaches such a stage that they are not able to perceive what's going on around them. So an extreme level of Alzheimer's disease would be counted as a person who is insane. He doesn't know what's going around him. So such a person as well, same as the case with the non-baligh child, if he gains wealth and the wealth remains for more than a year, then khums would be wajib upon that wealth. And specifically for the case of an insane person who is baligh, his guardian is not his father or his grandfather. In his case, this case would be taken to the Hakim al-Shar, meaning the Mujtahid, and the Mujtahid will appoint someone to remove the khums from his wealth. So here it's not at the duty of the father or the grandfather if the insane person is baligh, but rather the Mujtahid will appoint someone, maybe somebody from the family, whoever is taking care of the person, and say, okay, it's your duty from his wealth, you can remove the khums. So that summarizes this discussion about is khums wajib upon non-mukallafs, and we said the answer is yes, khums is wajib upon people who are insane or children who are not baligh as well. And the idea was that we will inshallah speak for 50 minutes, and then last 10 minutes we will keep for questions. So if you have any questions, please make sure you write them down, and inshallah at the end we'll open the floor for Q&A. So that solves the issue of khums on wealth of children. Now, like I said, the first thing that we need to do is to identify one's khums date. It is on the khums date where we'll do all the calculations to see what exactly is wajib. So the first and most important discussion is identifying when is one's khums date. For Al-Sistani, he says that there are two kinds of individuals, a working person and a non-working person. So let's go to the working person first. Working person is not defined as somebody who has a job. No, it's not just if you have a job. He says a working person is defined as someone whose annual earnings, meaning his earnings throughout the year, are enough to cover at least 25% of his annual expenses. So consider a person, he says, okay, throughout the year, what are my total expenses? Rent, food, water, transport, electricity, gas, all these bills. He says, okay, these are all my expenses. Okay, I have a job, for example, how much am I earning? He calculates his salary and says, okay, in a year, I earn this much. So he says, okay, now compare the amount that you earn, your annual earnings, and your annual expenses. Is your annual earnings enough to cover at least 25% of your expenses? If yes, okay, first step, we'll consider you as a working person. If no, for example, you're earning so little salary and your expenses are so much that even 25% of your expenses you cannot cover. Let's say you have others helping you, you're taking loans, Jamaat is helping you, for example. You have other incomes. But through your normal day-to-day income, it's not enough to cover even 25%. So this person will be a non-working person. We put them on the side and we'll consider them next. So this working person, he's saying, okay, I checked how much I earn in a year. Yeah, it's more than 25% of my expenses. Okay, a working person. For a working person, their khums date is the first day on which they started working. So they say, okay, when was the first day that I started this job of mine, for example? Say, okay, I got hired and the first day I went to work, for example, was, let's say, 1st of January. So here, for a working person, their khums date will be the first day on which they started working. And so if they started working on 1st January, for example, now every year on 1st January, they will have to calculate their khums, as we will mention later. So the point is, for the working person, their date is the first date on which they started working. The important thing for such a person is that he can only have one date, meaning the first day that he started working. He will calculate all his khums on this day. He cannot have separate dates for separate incomes. What do I mean by this? This will become clear when I compare it to the non-working person. So let's come to the non-working person, who I said is defined as someone who does not have an annual income, work income, to cover at least 25% of their expenses. So say, for example, you have students who are studying, you have housewives, for example, people who are retired. They don't have a working income to cover at least 25% of their expenses. So these people are considered a non-working person. Now, remember I said that the criteria is that throughout the year, how much do you earn? And throughout the year, how much is your expenses? So some people, like students, for example, they can say that, yeah, I work in the summer, I do a part-time job. So okay, fine, you're doing a part-time job 3 months in a year. How much do you gain in 3 months? How much is your cost for the year? Even if 3 months you're working, if that income from the 3 months is not enough to cover 25% of your expenses, you are considered a non-working person. Okay, I'm a non-working person. Now what? Now here is the benefit that applies to the non-working person. For the non-working person, they can either choose any date that they want. Any date they want, they pick a date. They say, okay, my khums date is, I like 1st of February. Okay, 1st of February is my khums date. Non-working person, they can pick any date they want, or they can keep a separate date for each gain or each income that they receive. So say, for example, this is a non-working person, he's a student. He receives a gift, for example, on 1st of March. Now, he can say, for this specific gift, I will keep a separate date, which will be 1 year from when I received this gift. So this specific gift that I received, this, let's say, 5,000 shillings, I'll say, okay, because I'm a non-working person, I have the flexibility, I can say I'll keep it, this one specifically, for 1st of March. Or he can say, I'll pick one date, and everything I'll calculate on that one date. So what he can do is either he picks one date for himself, or for every income that he receives, he says, you know what, I'll keep a separate date for each income today I received a gift, okay, this gift, I'll say 1 year from this date, this khums applies on it then. Or he can even do a mix of both. He can say, you know what, I'll keep one date for ease of calculations, because I'll be receiving small gifts throughout the year. It's difficult to keep a separate date for each small gift. So I'll keep one date, I'll do most of my calculations on that date, but throughout the year, if I receive a very big gift, for example, I'll say, oh, this one, I want to keep it for 1 year. So I have now until 1 year from when I receive this big gift, and I can pay khums on it after 1 year. So this, the point over here is that the difference between a working person and a non-working person is that for non-working person, he has this flexibility that every income that he receives, he can keep a separate date for it. The point is that for a working person, he cannot do this. His date is fixed on the first day that he started working. And so that means is that, say I started working on 1st of January. On 31st of December, 1 day before my khums date, I received a large gift, for example. Somebody gave me 10,000 shillings. Tomorrow is my khums date. Because I'm a working person, tomorrow if my khums date comes, I have not paid my khums, I have not used this money, I have to pay khums on it. But for a non-working person, they can say, you know what, tomorrow is my khums date, it's going to be my khums date, I received such a big amount, I'll keep this separate, this one next year, 31st December. So the point is that a working person cannot keep separate dates, one date where he'll calculate all his khums, the first day he started working. For the non-working person, they can choose either to pick any date that they want, or they can keep a separate date for each income, or they can do a mix of the two. And in fact, the late Ayatollah Khoui didn't differentiate between working and non-working person. He said everyone can keep every income can have its own date. So those who knew the ahkam of Ayatollah Khoui, very likely that most of the time they wouldn't even need to pay khums, because they say, okay, I received my salary today, so okay, this salary, khums will be wajib upon it next year if this salary remains. So Ayatollah Khoui said for everyone, any income that you get, 1 year from when you receive that income, khums is wajib. But Ayatollah Sistani says, no, this specifically is for non-working people. Now, if that's understood, there are some details I would like to fill in to this formula right now. So we said a working person is somebody who earns at least enough to cover 25% of his annual expenses. Now, what if somebody has multiple jobs? We said if you're a working person, you have that one date only that you started working, okay, and you calculate your khums then. What if somebody has multiple jobs? So say, for example, in the daytime, I'm a school teacher, and then in the evening, I'm an Uber driver, so I'm doing simultaneously 2 jobs. What would be the case for this person? So for people who have multiple jobs, technically, they can keep separate dates for each job. They can say, okay, when was the day I started teaching in school? 1st of January. So one date is 1st of January. When was the day I started driving Uber? 1st of February. I can also keep 1st of February. So now they have this person who has multiple jobs can keep 2 dates. And he says, my income that is related to my school, for example, I'm earning a salary, that I will calculate it on 1st of January, whatever remains from it. My income that I'm receiving from driving an Uber, that I will calculate on 1st of February. And any other income that is not related to any of these two, so for example, somebody gave me a gift on Eid, for example, it's not related to my teaching, it's not related to Uber driving, this person says, okay, you have 2 dates, you pick any date, you calculate on either of the dates that you want. But this having 2 dates for 2 jobs only works if the following conditions are met. Number 1, each job on its own must give you an income to cover at least 25% of your expenses. So the same principle that you said at the start. If this one job of mine covers at least 25% of my expenses, okay, this has its own date. This other Uber driver job, let's say for example, no, I earn very little from this Uber driving. I earn like, it only covers like 10% of my annual expenses. Okay, then this is not considered a separate job. You can't keep a separate date for this. You just have this one date, and you will calculate your khums on that. So the first condition for somebody to have 2 dates for multiple jobs is that each job on its own must provide an income on its own to cover at least 25% of their expenses. The second one is that the accounts that the person has must be separate for each of them. If he only has, for example, let's say one bank account where he's getting his Uber income, he's getting his school income, and the income and expenses are not separate, then okay, this person cannot have 2 dates. But if he's keeping separate accounts for both of them, okay, then he has the flexibility, he can keep 2 dates. For a person who has multiple jobs, but each job individually does not cover at least 25% of his expenses. So let's say he's a school teacher and he's also driving Uber, and in the weekends, for example, he's also a gardener, for example. Now each of them, he says, each of them on their own, I'm earning so little that each of them on their own, if I was to look, none of them covers 25% of my annual expense. So this person will say that, okay, if you have one account where everything is going in, and then obviously after everything goes in, now obviously you can cover more than 25% of your expenses, then it says, okay, if you have one account where everything is going into the one account, then your Khums date is the first day that you started your first job. But if he has separate accounts, then we'll say, Asan, this person is not even a working person. He'll be considered a non-working person, and the ahkam of non-working person will apply to him. So we said that the working person, his Khums date is the first day that he started working. The first day he started working, okay, this is my date. Ayatollah Sistani says, he's very specific in this area, and he says, not only the day that you started working, even the hour that you started working has an impact. Why? Say for example, my Khums date is 1st of January. I received a gift at 10 o'clock in the morning on 1st of January. What is my duty over here? Do I pay Khums today? Today is my Khums date. I got the gift today. Or can I say, no, I got it today, I'll pay it next year, 1st of January. Ayatollah Sistani says, no. Your Khums date is limited to even the time you started working. The first day you started working, what time did you start working? So I went to job, for example, 8 a.m. in the morning. So I said, okay, 8 a.m. on 1st January, that is your Khums date. If you received a gift before 8 a.m., then you have to pay Khums at 8 a.m. If you not use that gift until 8 a.m., you have to pay Khums on that very day. If you're lucky, somebody gave you the Khums the money at 10 a.m. as a gift, then okay, this is past your Khums date, so now this one will be for next year. And so the timing as well is very important. Now, somebody might have a question over here. The typical question that people have is that, what about people who now change jobs, for example, or somebody who retires? Do they shift from working person to non-working person? What happens to them? So, take the example of somebody who loses their job in the middle of the year. They started working on 1st January, come, for example, March, they got fired. Now, they say, okay, I am not working anymore. What ahkam apply to me? Am I considered a non-working person? So we'll tell him, no. You wait until 1st January. This year has to finish. Once this year of yours finishes, we will see your status on next year, 1st of January. If on 1st of January next year, you have not found a job, okay, now you're free, now you're a non-working person, the ahkam of non-working people apply to you. If no, within the year, I lost my job in March, for example, I stayed home for 2-3 months, then I got another job, they'll say, no, for you, your date is still stuck at 1st of January, for example. Even though you change jobs, your date is still stuck at 1st of January. Similar to a person who retires. So my date was 1st of January, for example. I retired in November. Okay, I'm a retired person now. Can I consider myself a non-working person and apply those ahkam? Say, no, wait until 1st of January. Let this year finish. Okay, after the year is finished, now if you don't have a job, now you can apply the ahkam of a non-working person. Let's say, for example, you want to choose your own date. Okay, now you're free. But that year, you have to finish. So that's generally about the working person. Coming to the non-working people, every time I've done this discussion, the most common question that people ask is that, okay, what about a housewife who, she has a job, for example, a part-time job, she's like catering at home, she's selling things, but all her expenses are paid by her husband or her father, or someone is paying for the expenses. So is she considered a non-working person or a working person? The criteria for seeing whether you are a working person or a non-working person is to say, assuming nobody else is paying for my expenses. So consider that, okay, my husband is not going to pay for my expenses, or my father or my brother or anyone. Consider that if they were not paying for my expenses, then okay, how much would my expenses be for the year? Okay, I have, for example, food, water, transport, bills, whatever, and okay, this catering job that I'm doing. How much am I gaining from this catering job? Is it enough to cover at least 25% of these expenses? If it is, okay, I'm now a working person. If it's not, I'm a non-working person. So the point is that if, even though somebody else is providing for you, whether that be a husband, father, anyone, to know whether you are a working person or non-working person, you say, assuming that they were not to pay for my expenses, would my income cover at least 25% of my expenses or not? So, like I said, so those are the non-working people, and the main difference that I want to discuss, or that I want to mention right now, is that for the working person, they cannot keep a separate date for each income. For the non-working person, they can keep a separate date for each income. So before I finish this discussion about the Khums date, one thing is that it is permissible to set your Khums date based on Hijri calendar, solar calendar, Gregorian calendar. Doesn't matter. You say, okay, if you're a working person, for example, what is the first day I started working? Whether that's 1st of January, whether that's 1st of Muharram, whether that's 1st of Tirmah, whichever calendar you're using, you pick any date that you want. Doesn't matter which calendar you use. Similarly, for the non-working person who can choose any date, you can choose whichever calendar you want. Atlas Sistani says, it's fine, you can pick any. Although, if you pick the Hijri calendar, they say that it's closer to Ihtiyat because you end up paying more Khums, because the Hijri calendar is smaller than the Gregorian calendar. So if somebody wants to do Ihtiyat, say, okay, you know what, use a Hijri calendar, you will end up paying Khums more because the days are less. Now, say somebody says, okay, I want to change my Khums date, even if it be for the reason that my current Khums date means I pay a lot. So say, for example, somebody says, okay, my Khums date is 1st of January, but I realize that every year when Christmas comes, I get a big Christmas bonus from job. So if my Khums date is 1st January, I end up paying more because I only have like 3-4 days before my Khums date and I don't use that money. So can I change my Khums date even if it's for the intention of paying less? The answer is yes, it is permissible for one to change their original Khums date. There is a discussion that, okay, can I move it earlier or later? So the easiest one is that, okay, I want to move it earlier. So my Khums date is, let's say, 1st of January. I want to move it to 1st of December. Even if it's for the intention to pay less, that's fine, no problem. I want to move my Khums date to 1st of December. How do I do it? Okay, come 1st December, you pay Khums with the intention that, okay, I'm paying Khums on 1st of December. I want to change my date to 1st of December. I have moved it earlier. Then when 1st of January comes, I have no duty. My Khums date has moved earlier. So the point is, if you want to move your date earlier, it's very easy. The date you want to move it earlier to, you pay your Khums, that's it. As simple as that. But the condition is you have to pay Khums on that date. You have to have something that is liable for Khums. You cannot say, it's 1st December, I want my Khums date to be 1st December, but I don't have any money, for example, that Khums is liable on. I'll just make an intention that, okay, Khums now for me is 1st December. No. Niyat, plus you have to have some wealth that Khums is liable upon, or you can remove Khums on. Then you've changed your date, you brought it earlier. Okay, what if I want to delay it? Bringing it early, very easy. You just pay on the date that you want, very simple. What about delaying it? So from 1st January, I want to move it to 1st of February. So here, what you do, 1st January comes, I pay my Khums as usual. Then 1st February comes, and I pay my Khums again. In that 1 month, if I have gained anything, and I have not used it for my expenses, then come 1st February, I pay Khums again on anything that I gain in that 1 month. And what's happened now is that from next year, my Khums date is 1st of February. So to bring it easier, you just pay once. To bring it later, you pay twice. Now, you might see in some books that they say, it's not allowed to delay your Khums date. You're only allowed to bring it earlier. Technically, if you are paying attention, this is true. You can only bring it earlier. When you say you brought it later, what you have done is that next year's Khums date, you have brought it earlier. So technically, if somebody tells you, you cannot change your Khums date to a later date, yes, that's true. But what you are doing by paying Khums twice like this is that next year's date, you have brought it forward. So literally, if my Khums date is 1st of January, okay, now come 1st of February, that next year's 1st January, I want to bring it earlier. So that's literally what I've done. When I say I've paid Khums twice, what I mean is that next year's Khums date, I've brought it earlier. So just in case you get confused and somebody says that no, you cannot pay it later, you cannot change it to a later date, it's true, but by doing this twice, what you're doing is you're bringing that one earlier. So I think I will stop over here right now. And so this was concluding the section on picking a Khums date, and inshallah from the next weeks, then we will move on to say, okay, now that I know my Khums date, how can I calculate my Khums on my Khums date? This were all the ahkam related to the Khums date, and if we have any questions, then Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
So Sheikh, in the case of, like you said, for a working person, it has to be set on the day that they started working.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, in some cases, you can't remember the exact date you started working.
Yeah.
And you've already picked a Khums date.
Yeah.
Can you go forward with that Khums date, or do you now revert to the time and date of your latest job?
So, in the case that you actually remember when was your first day you started working, and you already have a date, then you can change your Khums date to this day that you've already chosen through the way I explained. But in your case, where I don't remember the first day I was working, then this would be a case where you would have to go to the Hakim Ashar, and you would have to come to a settlement and say that, look, I don't remember that first day that I initially started working, and you come to a settlement, and most likely what happens is that the day that you come to a settlement, that becomes your new Khums date. So any cases where you're like, I don't remember what's the first day I was working, simple answer is refer to a wakil of the marja and come to a settlement.
And in the case of for example, my latest job,
Yeah.
I started working in October. But I put my Khums date to be 1st of January just for ease of remembrance.
Okay.
Then now do I have to revert it back to October, or can I keep it 1st of January?
So you had picked 1st of January.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And now you are at 1st of October.
No, I'm not. I started my current job on the 1st of October.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking.
Okay. So wait. First of all, before this job, were you considered a working person or non-working person?
Working.
You're a working person. Okay. So technically, then your original date is still stuck there. Just because you changed a job doesn't mean now the date changes as well. If you want to change your date, because you don't remember that original one, refer to the wakil, come to a settlement. If you remember that date, then, like I said, you can change your date. So bring it to this date, for example, through the methods that I mentioned.
Assalamu alaikum. At the outset, you said that if you get 5 dirhams,
Yeah.
then 4 is yours and 1 is gone. It's for Khums, meaning.
Yes.
So, but what we have been taught, or we have heard up till now, is out of the 5, you first take out all your expenses. Then if you get now, you're remaining with 3, and you take out Khums on the 3.
Yeah.
So can there be a clarification? That's my question number 1. My question number 2 is, I gift, let's say, 10,000 shillings to a person whom I know is not going to pay Khums at the appointed date.
Yeah.
But however, his birthday is there and I want to give that 10,000 shillings. I think, would it be prudent that I remove the Khums first and then give him the balance of 8,000, 9,000, whatever it comes to, and then that is done, deal? Thank you.
So regarding the first question, that was actually the words of the Imam, where the Imam was trying to say that the percentage of Khums that is potentially liable on the profit that you get is 1 out of 5 coins. Inshallah, next week, when we start discussing the income, I'll explain it again over there as well. If you look at the narrations are very interesting. They say that, actually speaking, Khums is applicable on the wealth as soon as you get it. Forget like 1 year. Even the verse doesn't say, wait for 1 year. أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. As soon as you get something, there is Khums on it. So the narrations from the Imams, they say that as soon as you get something, technically speaking, Khums is liable there and then. But the Imam says that out of our kindness and out of our grace for you, Shias, we are telling that, okay, you know what? Even though these 5 dirhams that you have gained right now, we own one right now. These other narrations, the Imam says, you know what? Okay, technically we own that one, but out of our kindness to you, we are saying, okay, take the 5, you have a year. Go spend this 5 in the year through your expenses. Whatever remains, bring 1/5 of that. So technically the proportions are still the same. You earned 5 right now, 1 out of 5 belongs to the Imam. The Imam is saying, I'm being kind to you, go use it, whatever you want. At the end of 1 year, what remains, 1 out of 5, you bring and give that as Khums. So that's the narration. Inshallah, this principle is very important, because next week when we discuss the ahkam related to this, you will see many people will be confused, like, okay, some very weird things that will come up. If you understand this principle, that actually khums is wajib as soon as you get that money, but the imam is giving you permission that go use it for a year, many of these rulings will become clear over there. Your second question was about the gift, yes. Technically, it's not your responsibility. If I give a gift to someone, that's fine for me. I've given him his gift. It's his responsibility to pay his khums. He pays, he doesn't pay. So technically, nothing's wajib upon you. You don't have to, it's not wajib upon you to pay the khums first and then give him the gift. But what I'm guessing from your question is that if somebody has a family member, for example, and say, for example, a son, for example, I know this son of mine doesn't pay khums. But obviously the father loves the son, and he doesn't want the son to, for example, bear the burden of not paying khums. Even though the son is like ziddi, doesn't pay khums, but the father still loves him and says, like, I don't want him to suffer and get the sin. So that discussion will come later, that yes, you can pay khums on someone else's behalf as well. But the way you are saying that I remove khums first and then give him, that doesn't solve the issue. Because what you've done is that you've given him a gift of 8,000 now. So instead of giving him a gift of 10,000, you've given him a gift of 8,000. Khums would still apply on that. As soon as the ownership changes to him and he gets it, whatever the amount is, khums would be liable upon it. If you really care for that family member, you want to pay for it, then after he receives it, on his khums date, for example, he's not paying khums, then you want, okay, I can pay khums on his behalf from my wealth. I can do that. But not that I pay khums first and then give him that wealth. That doesn't solve the issue, no. Yeah.
Okay. What if a father opens an account for his non-baligh child and says that the money he's depositing is khums free? Is that okay?
Khums free? How khums free? Like he's already paid the khums of the child?
I guess, yeah. But it's a non-baligh child.
No, if he's just paid his own khums, the khums would be applicable on that wealth 1 year after the child gets it. And so this kind of like advanced khums before even this 1 year has happened doesn't do anything. So as long as it stays in the account, 1 year after it's come into the account, it's come to the child, khums would be applicable then. So this advance doesn't work.
So is it the same case as ownership changing?
Yeah. So as soon as he gifts the child, whether that be, for example, putting it in his bank or giving the child in his hand, as soon as now the child receives it, and now the child is the owner, from that point until 1 year, if he uses it, he uses it. If he doesn't use it, then at the end of 1 year, then khums would be wajib upon it, and the father would have to remove on behalf of the child.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for a very informative session. The person whose earning is 25% of his expenses. So how will he pay khums? Because at the end of the year, he is in deficit.
Yeah.
He is paying khums on his saving or extra. So for example, if I've earned 100,000 and I've saved 20,000 at the end of the year, I have to pay khums on the 20,000. That's our understanding.
Yes.
But if I am in minus 40,000 and I'm asking for assistance to cover my 40,000 minus, how will I pay?
So there's two aspects to that. One is, okay, somebody is in debt. That's a whole separate discussion, which inshallah in future weeks we'll discuss that, okay, what if somebody has taken a loan or is in debt? How does that affect their khums calculation? So I'm not going to enter into that right now. But specifically, if, for example, he's got 20,000 remaining, he has not used it for his expenses. So even though he has like other expenses, at the end of the year, he's not used this money. He had a grace period of a year, which we'll inshallah discuss more next week as well. He had a grace period to put for his expenses, he didn't use it. When you say he's in minus, if you're talking about the debt, okay, the debt we'll discuss next time. But if you're saying, okay, he's got zero right now, okay, zero, no khums. But if he still has the 20,000, then technically, yes, khums would be wajib, unless the specific rules about debt would apply over here. And when we discuss that, you'll see that in some cases, he would not be liable for khums, in some cases he would be.
Sorry, so 20, he's, I mean, I am earning, my earning is 25%, covers 25% of my yearly expenses.
Yeah.
I've finished all my money. Now to pay school fees, to pay rent, I've gone to people to help me to pay.
Yeah.
So I have nothing of my own money.
Then there's no khums. If
Okay.
you don't have anything of your own, you don't have khums.
That, I want to just clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer that sister's question where she said that if I'm giving a gift to a child
Yeah.
and that money is already khums
Yeah.
from my own earnings, with my savings. I've already paid Khums on that, and I'm gifting it to my daughter,
Yeah.
who is baligh as well. So does she have to pay Khums on that money as well?
Yes.
Even
As
though Khums has already been paid from that money.
yes. If I have paid Khums on my money, this money, as long as it's with me, I'll never have to pay Khums on it again. So as long as it's me. As soon as ownership changes, the clock starts again. As soon as ownership changes, for this daughter, for example, it's a new income I've received. It doesn't matter whether the person who gave me paid his Khums, didn't pay his Khums. It's a new income for me. 1 year I've not used it, I have to pay Khums on it.
But that's not what we've been told. We've been told that once you've paid the Khums on that money is now can be used for any other purpose, like gifting.
Yeah, it's halal for you to gift it, it's halal to donate.
It's halal for me to give it to my daughter.
It's halal to you to gift it to her, but what's her duty now? Her duty is it's as the same as, for example, I have a business, for example, I'm earning money, and I have employers, for example. All this money I received, I paid Khums on it, and now I give them salary. Say, okay, this is my Khums free money, I've paid Khums on it, here's your salary. You still say, okay, they still have to pay their Khums on that salary. It doesn't matter. Salary, gift, doesn't matter. As soon as ownership changes, the clock starts again.
She is not earning that money.
Yeah, she got it as a gift. Doesn't matter.
She's paying the Khums on the money she is earning.
And the gifts as well, if they've not been used in the year. Yeah, for yourself. Once you've paid Khums on... Yeah, I don't know where you got that from. I'm 100% sure that is not the ruling. As soon as ownership transfers, the clock starts again.
That means in case of inheritance,
Yeah.
whoever receives it has to pay Khums on that.
So,
Even though that inheritance money has already been
so inheritance is a specific case. Next week, inshallah, we'll start with incomes that are exempt from Khums. One of the incomes that is exempt from Khums is inheritance.
So it's better to pay inheritance rather than
Yeah, I don't know why you would pay Khums and then gift it. There's no point of that. It doesn't do anything. She has to pay the Khums anyways at the end of her year.
So, is it, in cases of, because of previous points in life, you didn't really pay attention to Khums much previously, especially while growing up. It's and you've become more aware now, right? Can you estimate and pay Khums, like you make sure that your estimation is more than your Khums would as ehtiyat? Is that allowed, and is it recommended in this case that you haven't been paying attention?
Yeah. So technically this would be a whole discussion on somebody who wants to pay Khums for the first time. For example, all these years they're not making Khums, now they wake up and they're okay, I want to pay Khums. It's much more detailed than that. But yes, one of the methods they can do is they say, you know what, I'm not going to do all these calculations. I'll pay an amount that I'm 100% sure Khums is covered in this. So technically you'll pay a big amount for you to an extent that if somebody even adds a shilling to that, you're like, no, there's no way that shilling has Khums on it. This is the maximum. Khums that I had all these years, I'm for sure 100% it was covered in this. If you want to do that, yes, this is a way of doing ihtiyat, you can do that. But there are other means as well that you can resolve this issue, inshallah, which we'll get to in the point. Yes?
If I have a joint account with my husband, whose duty is it to pay the Khums?
So over here, it doesn't matter whether account is joint or not. The point is that this money that you own, where is it coming from? Okay, like for example, I have a job, for example, my wife also has a job. We're both putting that money into an account. So here as well, I would do my own calculations, she would do her own calculations. How much is she earning? How much is being used in the expenses? Likewise, I would do the same thing. So just because the joint account doesn't negate anything. You pay whatever is your responsibility, he pays whatever is his responsibility. Yes?
I wanted to ask, in regards to students, you can say, well, let's say have gone abroad to study and are now getting money maybe from their parents, or they're getting money from, you can say, sponsors or donors, and they get like a monthly allowance. And of course, as you mentioned about the condition, if it covers 25% of the expenses for the year.
I said that's if you have a job that's giving you that much. Not like, for example, you're getting like monthly gifts, or like, for example, the government is giving you a gratuition or something. No, specifically if you have a job and through that income you are covering at least 25%.
What about for the non-working category?
Yeah, so for the non-working people, your point is that, okay, every month I'm receiving these gifts, for example, my parents are supporting me. Yeah, so I'm a non-working person. So yeah, if they are gifting it to me, like I am the owner, for example, so okay, I pick a date, for example, I'm a non-working person, I pick whatever date is easier for me. It could be, for example, I can say, even I'll pick Laylatul Qadr. So it's Laylatul Qadr is khairu min alfi shahr. Any amal that you do on that night is multiplied. So I'll say, okay, I want to do my khums on Laylatul Qadr. So okay, Laylatul Qadr comes, whatever gifts I receive from my parents and whatever, if they're gifted to me, meaning like not that, Muzammil, use this money for your fees, but I'm still the owner. No, like they gave me ownership. This is yours, do what you want, save it, use it, whatever. Okay, come Laylatul Qadr, whatever is left over, I've not used it, pay khums on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Salam. Yeah.
So the year I have income, money in, credits and expenses, debit, credit. And then the 31st December, I check on my bank statement. So the balance is 35,600. So I pay khums on 35,600, for example.
So inshallah, in the coming weeks, we will discuss that, that one, which incomes are exempt from khums, which ones are not, and the money that you spent, assuming you are following the Sharia 100%, that would be correct, that whatever has remained now is khums is wajib. But there are instances where you spent where you are not supposed to spend, where we'll discuss next time. You spent where you're not supposed to spend, then even though you spent it, that money is gone, khums would still be liable on that. So if you are following the Sharia, then look at my bank account, that technically tells me my savings, yes. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, if I have a khums date, and 2 days before, I have an estimate of how much it's going to be.
Yeah.
So 2 days before, can I make that decision, or am I free to decide to give a certain lump sum to charity or dig a well or something?
Yeah, so before your khums date, you do anything you want with the conditions we'll mention next time. But any halal thing you want to do, you want to donate, you want to give, by all means.
Thank you.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry, for the employed people,
Yeah.
for example, in our country, there are not health insurance for the work insurance.
Yeah.
So every month, 23% of your salary, out of your salary, yani the salary which the employer is paying for you, 23% of that, they are paying for insurance company for working insurance.
Yeah.
It's attracting for example, after a couple of years, for example, 30, 35 years for retirement.
Yeah.
So that money which company is paying for working insurance for your pension, what's the rule on that?
Yeah. So this discussion of pension, retirement schemes, insurance, these will all be discussed in detail in later sessions. Today I was just focusing on khums on the wealth of non-baligh children and identifying your khums date. So pensions and all, inshallah, we will discuss in the future weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Last question, I promise. So, like, let's say my dad pays my school fees when I was younger.
Yeah.
So now, him paying the school fees, is that counted as ownership changing to me because I'm the one going to school?
No.
Or is that going to be reduced from the amount of khums that he has to pay?
No, it's a valid expense of a person. He has his personal expenses, his family expenses, his friends, for example, his donations. These are all valid expenses that we will discuss later. It's for him, he can use it, it's fine. There's no khums on that money. Any question, the ladies? Last questions? Yes.
If the joint account, my husband is the one who puts the money for both of us, like, I don't know, like he is in charge. In this case, who pays the khums?
When you say he's putting the money for both of us, does it mean that the lady is working? Or is, for example, the husband is saying, okay, monthly I'm giving you a stipend, for example, or a gift, for example. If it's working, then okay, it doesn't matter like who's actually depositing it. She's still the owner because that's her wages, for example. But if it's no, things like, for example, he's giving a monthly stipend, then there's a bit more detail to it. Inshallah, next week or the third session, that discussion will come up. Yeah. So today specifically, I was only limiting myself to khums date and khums on the wealth of children. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
So I had two questions. The first one is which expenses are counted in your, when you're calculating your like 25%? Is it all your expenses, so you can inflate your expenses and then?
No, your annual expenses throughout your year. What is your general expenses? For example, if you stay in a rented place, okay, rent, food, water, electricity, traveling, for example, your halal entertainment, for example, all these are all counted as part of your expenses. It's very easy to like get a rough estimate and say that, okay, is my income covering at least 25%?
Okay, so you can, for example, put a huge amount on a big vacation and then that would
if you know that, for example, okay, these are my annual expenses, I'm not making things up. Like every year, for example, come December, I go 2 weeks to Bamburi beach. Yeah.
All right, okay. And for someone who doesn't know their expenses at the moment, like you still are like grappling.
So
like
we're talking about like annual expenses, meaning the things that you know about, not that things come up suddenly like, okay, one day I woke up, I had to go to the hospital. Not talking about those kind of expenses. Saying general expenses throughout the year that you know about, that how much are you going to pay in the year.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, living expenses.
That makes sense. And the next question is, what if you want to move your Khums date later, but on like, for example, in your example, on 1st February, you don't have any Khums, liable Khums money. So like, you remember you said that you can move it backwards?
Yeah.
And then on 1st December, you must have money that's liable for Khums.
Yeah.
What if you move it later to 1st February, but on that day you don't have any money that's liable for Khums? Can you still move it later?
No. Any type of movement that you want to do must include that on that date you have to pay the Khums. Just a mere intention is not enough. You have to have something that you have to pay Khums on.
Okay, sorry, and one more last question.
Sure.
When you lose your job and then you're waiting until 1st January and you don't get a job on that date, or you get a job, is Khums still valid on you on that 1st January?
Yeah, so 1st January is the end of your year.
Okay.
Whatever happened in that year, you lost your job, you changed your job, doesn't matter. Come 1st January, you will calculate your Khums, as we'll mention later on. And then, okay, now you'll say, okay, now I've done my Khums, okay, now it's the new year. What is my status? Have I found a new job, for example? If I'm not working, okay, I'm not working. That year is finished. Now I can pick my own date, for example.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
No worries.
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned if we have randomly selected a date or we need to change a date, we need to consult or go back to the wakil.
Yeah.
How is that process done?
You call him or you arrange a meeting.
Is there any, okay, so I can maybe discuss with you who specifically, or I don't know if I'm the only one who's this question, but anybody who's just set a date.
Yes.
And now we've come to know that these are actually the rulings of setting a date.
Yeah.
If you could just generally, maybe next week or something, give us a basic, just a guideline of who, how, when, or contacts, or just.
So generally, in Nairobi, I think Sayyid Hisham Murtada is a wakil of Atlastani. So you can just like call him, sit at a meeting with him and say, okay, look, this is my situation. I didn't know, I randomly picked this date and I'm a working person. Let's come to a settlement.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد متوجه زيارة
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا نبي الله السلام عليك يا خير خلق الله ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا إمام حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين سيد الشهداء السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل عباس قمر بني هاشم السلام عليك يا سيدة زينب قلة بني هاشم السلام عليك يا إمام علي زين العابدين السلام عليك يا إمام محمد الباكر السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر الصادق السلام عليك يا إمام موسى الكاظم السلام عليك يا إمام علي الرضا السلام عليك يا فاطمة ما سمعكم السلام عليك يا إمام محمد الجواد السلام عليك يا إمام علي الهادي السلام عليك يا إمام حسن العسكري السلام عليك يا مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك واجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ومن المستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومعدن العلم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.